Good morning, everybody. I'm Professor Ken Kuttner from Williams College in the CDE, and welcome to the CDE, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to interview you this morning.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
Okay. Let me just start with a brief, kind of a little bit of a personal remark. There's nothing quite as satisfying to a professor, I think my colleagues will agree, as seeing a former student go on and do great things in the world, particularly in the context of the CDE when those things involve improving the policy or contributing to sound policy making in their home country. So I find that particularly gratifying, and so for that reason it's a special pleasure to have you with us here today. So I thought I'd start with some, yesterday we heard a lot about the institutional policymaking framework in Albania, and I thought today I'd hit Gela with some macroeconomic questions about the situation in Albania. So I would say by almost every macroeconomic metric, the economy in Albania is in a very good place. Real activity has rebounded sharply after COVID, and it looks like it's on track for growth of at least 3% in real terms for the next few years. Inflation was actually below 2% for many years prior to COVID. After the spurt during COVID and immediately after COVID, inflation is coming down to 3%. The central bank has done very well in that regard. Similarly, after the red ink, there was a lot of fiscal red ink after the COVID crisis. But again, the budget is going back into the black. And so given this spectacular economic performance, I think it's fair to call Albania a success story in a lot of ways. Yeah. So the first question that comes to mind is, how did you do it?
Yep.
Are there any salient pieces of advice you might offer to the CDE fellows here in the room or watching via Zoom, pass along by way of advice to countries that are trying to progress economically?
Yep. In fact, it's not that it has been easy, because Albania has been attacked through 3 consecutive crises. It has been earthquake, it has been pandemic, and it has been Ukraine, and all of that has been impact the economic growth. Although our economy has been recovered with a higher speed than we were firstly forecast, and this was due to the strong consumption, domestic consumption, strong private investment, and the negative impact of import. It has been diminished a little bit from the positive impact of the export, mostly on the services. This has rebound our GDP growth, and since 2023, our real GDP growth has been 3.5%, and we are expecting to have 3.7% in 2024. This can we say the most, which are the sector that has been contributed in this growth? Tourism. It has been fascinated in these last years. You may heard Albania is becoming so fancy on tourism now, and this has given its impact in the economic growth as well. Services are also the most contributor in the economic growth. Construction is also there. Energy, this has been the most contributing sector in the economic growth of the country.
I guess my question is, which macro policies do you think were most instrumental in contributing to not so much the year-to-year growth in the Albanian economy, so much as the sort of growth and longer-term trend really over the past 10 years or so, 10 to 15 years?
In fact, it has. We know that the impact of the economy doesn't come like that you put the instrument and you get the result within the year. It has to get through reforms, which has to have the impact to better organize and to have an impact in long term. And of course, this has been the work of more than a decade, and the result of the tourism that we are getting, it's not that it's one day work, but it's all the investment that the government has been oriented towards tourism to reconstruct all the cultural buildings or cultural museums and so on, and related that on the tourism to restaurate all the center, all the coastal, in order to get the most importance of tourism has to have, because the natural beauty has been there, but all the investment putting and making this beauty in place and most closer to reachable, and of course with the publicity everything has come in one direction. We have subsidized a lot of agriculture, small agriculture, tourism, in order for people to promote their small businesses and to keep and to give the best of our tradition in the tourist, which has been most likely the most preferable from the tourist as well. So we have all oriented to tourism in order the investment in road as well, the security from the other side. They are all have drawn the right picture in order to make tourism as successful that it's now. Construction as well. Albania is a country that has from 365 days a year, 300 are by sun. This is a country that is safety. It's a country which is situated in the good position of Europe. You have, for 45 minutes, you can go Rome, you can visit. So a lot of even foreigners from the Scandinavian countries has been bought house to spend their life in Albania. A lot of Italians, retirements, are spending their lives in Albania now. So we are becoming a little bit attractive, which has helped and been given the figures in economic growth.
Well, maybe you'll get some Americans moving in as
should.
well, depending on the outcome of the election in November. Let me focus in for a minute on fiscal policy, which is one area where the Albanian success has been particularly striking. I know you're in the middle of a fiscal consolidation now to try to bring the deficit back to shrink the deficit and bring it back into a surplus in the next couple of years. But this is not your first fiscal consolidation. My understanding is that there was also a significant consolidation, increase in taxes, reduction in spending 10 years ago in 2014. And I guess my question is, if you ask any card-carrying macroeconomist, they will tell you that fiscal consolidations hurt. They tend to depress the economy, the spending reduces GDP, taxes will diminish consumer spending. And so for that reason, it's very difficult to pull off. A lot of countries shy away from doing fiscal consolidation because it can be so painful. What was Albania's experience in following the 2014 consolidation, and do you expect similar performance after the current consolidation?
I remember that we have been on fiscal consolidation reform, but there are some events, some that you unforeseen one, that you extend a little bit the process. But still, it's aiming to do, and we are going to fiscal consolidation. On the 2014, we did it, but as I explained yesterday, we have to clear the arrears, which were at the time 770 million US. Big money. But going through, we have paid these arrears, which means the economy got this money. But this has, and we loaned that from IMF. We were in program with IMF. We got the debt with low interest rate. But still, being in program with IMF, you have to be tough, and especially in fiscal consolidation. We still have room to do fiscal consolidation because we have to improve our revenue collection. We are not doing so well. Although we have improved, we still have room to increase the informal economy that we do have. And we are thinking that the reform that we are doing on digitalization of each process on the tax revenue, especially on the tax department, it will help us in increasing increasing or decreasing the informality of the economy. Another thing that we have to, and we are planning to go through, it's the property tax. In Albania, we do have property tax, but although it's too low, it's a little bit not well collected because it has been under local government. They don't pay attention to collect it, and so on. Now we are digitalizing that as well in order the system doesn't lie to you. So we are hopefully make a formal this tax as well, and we are thinking to have a high taxation on the second house, third house as well, because we don't have, till now we have taxation only for the buildings, but without dividing them on the second and third as well.
Interesting.
So there are still rooms. We do have some tax exemption that we have done for promoting some sectors. We might revisit those. So without being so tough on the new taxes, we do have room on the tax administration to help. Another thing is that strong currency of Albania has helped us on this fiscal consolidation as well.
You alluded to yesterday, and it's mentioned in some of the materials that I've read, Albania has instituted a fiscal rule to try to maintain fiscal discipline. Now, it's always struck me, and I think this is an experience in a lot of countries, that it's easy to write a rule and put that into the law. It's hard to enforce a rule, right? You can say, well, just look at the Maastricht Treaty, right? You know, you write a rule, and then you can get around it through creative accounting, and if there are no penalties and no sanctions for violating the rule, then you might as well not have a rule. How is Albania solving that problem of enforcement and putting in place a mechanism to give the rule teeth?
Yeah, but the teeth come out with the law. If you put on the law, you get out the teeth of the measure. If you stay only with Maastricht, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's postpone it, let's do it. But what has put us as a restriction is that we have written a law. So when you put there, you have to stick, otherwise you don't have a second.
But how does the government enforce a law? It's a law that constrains the fiscal authority. Who's enforcing a law?
It was the political will of the government, especially because opposition is always they like it. So the government was willing to do so. And because they are thinking that it's even the burden cost in the budget as well, because the expenses that you are paying on interest rates, they are not low, so they have to address this.
Well, you mentioned political will. For that, we've always found, most countries, certainly here, that austerity, fiscal consolidations are very unpopular. Interest groups love the spending. Nobody likes taxes here and pretty much everywhere else.
Especially for the government.
Yeah, especially for the government.
That's why I stressed that it was governmental will to do so, because opposition always asked that.
So how did you assemble a political consensus to achieve this? I mean, there are a lot of pressures going the other direction. Did something come together to get the government behind this degree of fiscal discipline?
It's like a mechanism, in fact. There is no government to like fiscal rules, no government to like increase the tax. Every government wants to make as much expenditure as they can to increase salaries. Why not? Because in such way they might increase their life in power.
Right, familiar story.
Yeah. But there is a but with when you are going to finance what you have planned, how to get the money. You have to go, for example, Albania has to be exposed to lend money from international markets. Who can give you money with these figures? Nobody can trust you. So to be reliable and to get the money, you have to behave and to put some constraint on yourself. That's why you have to have a good score in evaluation from the Standard and Poor's, you have to keep the ratio, otherwise you are not reliable from all the creditors. So this put the governments in rule that they should behave in order to be successful in what they want to achieve.
So there was an understanding that fiscal discipline was a necessary condition for accessing financial markets?
Yeah.
One of the other really striking aspects of Albanian macroeconomic performance is the really remarkable trend appreciation in the value of the lek, not only in nominal terms, but also in real terms. I think the lek has strengthened by, over the past 10 or 15 years, about between 25 and 30%, which is remarkable. Do you have any thoughts as to what is driving this appreciation?
Remittances.
Remittances,
Yeah, right. A lot of Albanians are living abroad, and now they have seen that the country is performing, economy is growing. They are finding out that to invest in Albania, it's better than to invest in the countries that they are living, and still we are like a country with taxes lower. We don't tax too much. So I think remittances, it's one of the reasons, and I think even the trade partner, foreign finance, always investment, it has been increased.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that, because when I teach macroeconomics in the second semester, I always talk about how remittances tend to increase the value of the currency. So I'm glad that the predictions that I discuss in my macro class are coming true in Albania.
It's more than 1/3 of Albanians living abroad, and
so about 5 to 10% of GDP, I think is.
Yeah. And we have done another reform on the property, which has made them more, has increased their credibility to invest on real estate and so on. So there are a lot of reforms which has helped all the mechanism to work.
I often talk about how remittances for many countries are, the expression is a two-edged sword. There are some positives of remittances and then some negatives associated with remittances, exchange rate appreciation being one of those negatives. What are some of the other things on both sides of the ledger when it comes to remittances?
In fact, it has not been such a trend in Albania, because it has been high from 93 till 97, 6, when Ponzi scheme came out. It has been increasing, and after that we have a decreasing trend of remittances. It has started to increasing again from 2014 and now. So it's related to what we are doing.
What impact has the strong lek had on the economy? I think conventional wisdom amongst many people is that for development, for growth, for robust macroeconomic performance, it's beneficial to have a relatively weak currency, as that makes exports more competitive and substitution towards domestically produced goods. So Albania has been very successful economically, macroeconomically, despite this very strong lek, this appreciation of the lek.
Because we don't export too much, we are importing too much. So the strong currency has helped us in increasing the revenue, import revenue.
And you mentioned on the benefit side, you had mentioned that the strong lek has actually been a blessing to the extent it reduces the lek-denominated value of the debt burden.
Yeah.
Right, interesting. Okay, that's a problem that sort of is the inverse of the problems many developing countries have, where the weakness and the rapid depreciation of the currency has precisely the opposite impact.
Yep.
So it's almost a virtuous circle as opposed to a vicious circle. Yep. Interesting. So with regard to, I know Albania is in the process of trying to move closer in its ties to the European Union more generally. What is driving that process? What benefits do you see in terms of increased integration with the European Union?
We have been in Europe geographically. We belong to Europe, and it has been Albanian dream to be part of Europe as a real European. And in fact, with the contact that we do have with all institutions, it's that we have to be there. Now we are as a candidacy. Especially we do have a lot of countries which are playing a crucial role and pushing Europe to push this process forward, because it doesn't make any sense now to stay behind. We have gone through severe reform to get the candidacy of Europe. We have almost screening in 1 year all the chapters with the delegation, and they were impressed, in fact, in what our public administration brought on in table, because maybe they had low expectation. That's why maybe has been impressed, or I don't know. So they were all impressed, and they said that they belong to Europe. They have to be there. So fulfilling all the tasks, having a good mark. We are now in the process that we're thinking that we have to be there.
Mm-hmm. So another interesting thing about Albania, from the standpoint of a lot of the countries from the CDE fellows are from, is I gather that the Albanian economy is highly Euroized. So euro is used in a lot of transactions, and so what are the implications of the Euroization for the Albanian economy? Are there pluses? Are there minuses? Are there efforts for policy to do something about that?
Since we do have a strong leg, the Euroization didn't affect too much. Or maybe it has impacts, but it has been like that. Euro has been present in transaction as well. We buy, when you go to buy real estate, the first price that you get, it's with euro per meter square. It's not in lek. It doesn't come in lek, so you pay in euro. So it's almost present. I can't say the ratio that is present, but it's not dominant yet.
Many CDE fellows I've spoken with express concerns about high levels of dollarization, or in your case, Euroization, would impede or lessen the impact or the effectiveness of monetary policy transmission. Is that something that's a concern for policymakers in Albania?
A central bank is following what's going on with the currency, and they are sometimes intervening the market in order to decrease the impact of the strong leg. But still, it's not a problem. They are keeping in contract.
We're entering a time now when the Federal Reserve is starting to, it had been raising rates for a long time, and that it caused capital outflows from many countries, and now the process is reversing. And as the Federal Reserve is cutting rates, then I expect to see some of those flows going the other way. Have these capital flows had much of an impact on Albania, or is Albania, because the ties are closer to Europe, is Albania more insulated from the spillovers from the U.S. economy?
I don't think that there is a close impact with the U.S. We are our most more important trade partner are border and Germany, Italy, Germany, Greece, Turkey. These are the main trade partner of the country.
And the financial linkages, I would imagine as well, are primarily with the European area. Well, I guess it's good for you to be immune to the vagaries of U.S. monetary policy.
Only on monetary policy.
Well, what are the vagaries of the U.S. Policy that you are subject to?
We do have a close collaboration on the defense policy with the U.S.
So I understand Albania has been trying to increase the share of GDP devoted to military spending to hit the 2% target. And you are close to being there now.
No, we have reached even more than.
Even more than 2%.
2.03% of GDP.
Yeah. Military, again, and macroeconomists will tell you, well, that's an increase in government spending. That's going to be macroeconomically stimulative. And in fact, there's macroeconomic research where shocks to government military spending has been used as an instrument, a variable for looking at the impact of fiscal policy. Is that something you've seen in?
Of course. It's always, and each country. And we try, even when we spend money on defense, to try to increase the beneficiary not only the defense sector, but other sectors as well, in order to get used as much as we could.
This would be way far down the road, but can you imagine a situation, returning now to the integration with the euro area, can you imagine a scenario where 10 years or more down the road, Albania would want to join the monetary union and adopt the euro officially?
It will come. It will come when we are on that path.
On that path. And in fact, it strikes me, I've always thought that if it's a heavily euroized economy already, in a sense, you know, if everybody's using euros anyway, or it's already sort of de facto part of the monetary union.
Yeah.
So, and the financial linkages are such that that's already a lot of access to European capital markets anyway.
Yeah.
So really, eurozation would be a relatively small step, or adopting the euro formula.
Yeah. It will come step by step.
And what do you think or can you see advantages and disadvantages of joining the monetary union formally?
Of course, that they will be. But I think they are going to come together, Eurozation, the being part of European community, so they are going to be in the same, we are going to have the same language, we are going to have the same policy that can fit for us.
Well, I want to allow time for questions from the audience, and both here and on Zoom. And answers from Gela. But before I do that, I want to pose one last question. I want to see if Gela would do a teaching evaluation for us. And having had 15 years elapsed since you were in my econometrics class and took the other classes at the CDE, with 15 years of hindsight and accumulated wisdom, do you have any suggestions for CDE faculty about how we might improve our teaching? Are there topics that you wish we had covered that we didn't? Are there topics that were superfluous you're finding are useless in your career?
The teaching experience here is the best. You can't say, you can go further. Well, so you reached the highest.
The check is in the mail.
So this has brought me back after 15 years.
Well, very, very sweet of you to say that, but we are constantly trying to adjust and improve our program. But it's nice to know that what was working is worked for you very well.
Keep
it up.
Yeah.
Okay, you get that chair of the CDE? Absolutely. All right, very good. Well, I think we have plenty of time now for questions and answers from the audience and people out there on the internet. And I have my iPad here. If any questions come in remotely, Lisa is going to message me with them. So that's why I'm looking at my iPad. So let me face ID and let's open the floor to questions. Yes. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. We'll make Tom wait. First, identify yourself, and also for sort of general advice, it would be very helpful to me, and I'm sure to the speaker and everybody in the remote audience, to speak up to make sure that we can hear you, clearly.
So, my name is Nursultan. I'm from Kyrgyzstan, which is located in Central Asia. So, you were talking about digitalization of tax policy, because in case of my country, we have started digitalize our tax policy 3 years ago, and now we see that our state budget considerably has increased. And I have a question, but at the same time, still we are facing difficulties, because some sectors they don't want to pay taxes, and there are a lot of difficulties. And I have a question. So, when have you started this digitalization of tax policy, and which kind of difficulties you have faced and still you are facing? Thank you.
The system is in place. There are 2 years we put in place. But you have to train. You have to train the administration who is using the system. You have to train even the businesses. You have to see the business and the tax administration like a partner. They have to be collaborative, understandable. the business has to be aware that it has been treated in the right way. You are not asking more than it has to be paid. And you are doing the same rule to the same actors, because they are feeling a little bit embarrassed if you treat them not equal between the competitors. This makes them feel angry. When they know that this is the rule, the system is there, you cannot pretend, because the system has put that, and you are on this line. Another thing that has brought new in this is that businesses are not more disturbed with the presence of the official in their doors, and to be part of the negotiation. Now is the risk assessment that system is putting, and put the alarm, the red, that sends the group, and the group doesn't know where they are going. The group is like, it's a group that's not belong to be, they are always newcomers to the business. So it makes a little bit difficult to be in touch with. So it's a process, you have to be aware. But now the businesses has been following, and we have got the results.
Well, I believe you had a question back there. We'll call on Tom Powers, who needs no introduction.
I interviewed Gela in January 2008. Maybe that's right. It's okay. Gela, this is very interesting with respect to the strength of your currency and the unique situation you've had with remittances being largely positive. Do you think that some of that is, or much of that is driven by the special demographic situation in Albania with your size of your population relative to the Albanian diaspora? And perhaps you can give some information on that so everyone hears about that.
Yeah, it is related, and but mostly I see that they have seen that Albania is growing. If you visit Albania and if you visit Tirana and around, you see the energy, that the country is moving. You see the construction, the country is taken a modern view. When you live there, you don't recognize it. You take it for granted. Oh, and you see, maybe Albanians are a little bit to see more black than white, and they are very judgeable people. But for friends or cousins that come and visit us in 2 years, they see the difference, and they were, wow, it has not, this building has not been there. Wow, how it has changed this and how it has changed that. So they are the people that better recognize what's going on. And I think they have increased the trust to invest in Albania. I told you, and I give you the figures, there are 50,000 Italian retirement coming and living in Albania, spending lifetime over there, and now it's becoming problem with our health sector, because how can we give the Italy the bill of the health expenditure? So I think it's more that they are seeing benefit, and the real estate prices has been dramatically increased lately because the demand.
Right. One could argue that Albania had been sort of artificially closed off for some period, and so prices didn't hit the market levels of surrounding countries.
Yeah. Yep.
Professor Caprio.
Oh, Jerry Caprio, Emeritus Professor, I guess Emeritus Chair. So in the Financial Development Regulation course that I used to teach here, a frequent issue that came up in students' papers was the issue of dollarization or eurozation. And it seems like there's one class of risks which may apply to Albania that did apply to them, and that was, so if you have a dual currency system, and you mentioned that real estate prices were being quoted in euros, are people borrowing in euros? So if the loans are denominated in euros, are they getting paid in euros or in lev?
In euros. Mostly. Mostly they are in euros.
Oh, okay, so you're insulated from the mismatch risk. So the second one is, if you're, I haven't followed this, I don't know how close Albania is, to joining the euros in the next 3-5 years that there's the plan to do that, or?
We are within 2030. They are expecting to be in.
Okay. So then there's the issue of planning for what happened to other countries like Ireland that joined the euro. Is immediately their mortgage interest rates fell from like 8.5–9% to 4%, what the euro interest rate was, and that set off a housing boom. It also figured in the boom in Spain. So is the government thinking about that in terms of preemptive policies to be alert for that, or is it not? You're not close enough that it's.
It will be. We have to join the Europe, and after that, another step. It will be join the euro. It's not going to come, and we are not there. We are working to be in Europe now.
So you'll cross that bridge.
Yeah.
When you get to it.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Gelardina from Ministry of Finance of Georgia. I wonder what was the impact of war in Ukraine in your country? Like, did rents increase? Did it impact the remittances, or?
We had price increase, especially in fuel, but it didn't last too much. And this has been compensated with, because even, or let's say like this, at the beginning we thought that it would be and last, still when the war, it will last, it will be the same, but it didn't. Although impact the fuel, maybe the lasting was too long, because even the trade partner moved around and didn't impact or decrease the timing of these prices. So we had high inflation for 6 months, let's say, and after that we found the balance. And still our inflation is on place, on control.
About 3% now, I think. So it's really on par with that of the United States.
Yeah. Around 3%.
Mm-hmm. Professor Ashraf, you had a question.
Yes. I have questions relating to both Jerry's point and Tiona's point. I'll just follow up on the question relating to Tiona's point, which is, the war in Ukraine plus sort of inflationary pressures that were kind of permeating through, much of the globe, meant that many countries often, faced sort of currency reserve type of crises, right? So this was very typical in Bangladesh. It happened throughout South Asia and many other countries, namely that both, high prices for fuel on international markets, plus sort of also contraction of remittances, so remittance-dependent economies, also economies that are dependent on tourism, for instance, meant that those things kind of dried up. So what was the impact for Albania in terms of foreign reserves? And how was that? And if there was one, how was it managed?
In our foreign reserve, we do have, I think, 7-month import. So we are good.
In any case, just to follow up on that, to the extent there has been foreign exchange intervention, it's been the purchase of foreign exchange.
Yeah.
So because the intervention efforts have, I assume, been in an effort to keep the value of the lek down rather than trying to prop it up.
Yep.
So that's a very fortunate situation to be in, assuming things don't reverse quickly, which they always can. Did you have a second follow-up question to that? Okay, good.
This is Ifaza from Pakistan. So I just want to know, this property tax is an area which has huge revenue potential, like in any country across the world. So as you said, it's a local government tax, and there is a lot of room of collecting, but still you guys are under potential. Like in Pakistan also, a few years ago it was devolved to provincial authorities because local government was not able to collect it the way they should have been. So, and then it had a huge revenue, potential jump in our country as well. Also there was a lack of capacity building among the local government officials. So what do you think the Albanian government is trying as a strategy, whether they are thinking to strengthen the capacities of local government? Is there any enforcement strategies of how to collect them? So how are they taking, because I think it's like a huge chunk of GDP could come from property tax revenue.
That's why we are putting that in the reform. And it's a reform that has started with the register of all the properties. And based on that, we digitalize that. And we are training the administration to collect that as well. Then it will be not more local tax, but it will be governmental tax, and it will be collected from the tax departments in order to increase the revenue and to say the local government at the beginning to start with the general director of tax, and after that when the tax it will be in place they can give to local government, but it has to be under control once.
Furthermore, the tax involvement of tech has its own pros and cons. Do you think this digitalization of the property tax records would actually be enhancing the revenue overall, or it could also, because the people who will be entering the data again be the humans. So how do you think the tech involvement could actually be favorable in enhancing the...
Because we have collected all the actors in the process. For example, when you buy a property, you go to the office and you put the transaction till at that time the transaction is registered. And this tax property is going to collect information from cadastre, from all the institutions that have information for the properties. So you can't, if you are online, and if you have all the actors all involved in the process, you get the result.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Professor. I'm Tanya from Zimbabwe. I want to ask Jela, in our opinion, do you happen to have the informal sector? And if it is there, what is the contribution of the informal sector, or the ratio of informal sector to the formal sector? Then if there is informal sector, what kind of reforms are you putting in place so that we move towards the formalization of those informal sectors?
I can't say the exact portion that informal sector have part in our economy, because if you heard the opposition, they might say 50%. If you heard from the government, 30%. So to be in the middle, let's say 40%. But still, we have to have a lot of work to shift from black at least to green, and after that to white. And these reforms requires efforts daily. And as I said, we have started with digitalize all the services, all the institutions that can contribute in this. And it's the lack of this space, it's narrowing. So I think we are doing good job in order to formalize as much as we can from that part.
Yes, in the back.
Yeah. Hi. I'm Agnes and I'm from Senegal. So I was asking, since Albania's economy is doing good at its health and the currency is strong, how will joining the European Union will be more beneficial for the economy itself?
As I said, our most trade partner, the main trade partner, are Germany, Italy, Greece, Turkey, most European countries. I don't think that moving, almost we are having transaction with them, moving into Europe, it will make our country more safe to invest. So I think it will not impact the strong currency.
Yes, please.
Yes, I'm Israel from Rwanda. Just ask about the digitalization process, because most of the time, if you are approaching the digitalization, most of people scared about being transparent because they are going to monitor all of their transactions, and if they have never been monitored before, they even tend to move their businesses from other countries that has no digitalization process. And what are your communication strategy to avoid that to happen?
As I said to you, Albania still has low taxes. We are from the countries that we don't pay too much taxes. For example, my salary is taxed 23%. If I ask, I don't know in your countries, but EU countries, they have 35 to 50% of the salaries. So we are still in we see a lot of businesses are shifting to Albania. They are going from Italy to coming to us in order to gain a little bit from this fiscal space that Albania gives. The digitalization of the tax didn't impact that part of.
Yes.
My name is Stella from Zambia. I wanted to find out, one thing you mentioned was the fact that your currency is very strong. And like for us, maybe my colleagues can attest to that, coming from Africa to the US, we find that most of the things are very expensive. And so how do you manage tourism, which you say is like a very key contributor to your GDP, because it means it's quite expensive then to come to Albania. So how do you manage?
We are not a expensive country. We are unfortunately considered as a low-cost country, and we are getting even the tourism. I think the massive tourism is that because it found Albanian low cost comparing what they are getting there. So for the quality of the service that you are getting, they are paying very few compared to Italy, compared to Greece or elsewhere. So that's why they are preferring Albanian and the adventure to be somewhere else that they are not being.
I'm from Bangladesh. As we said, Albania is famous for tourism, and also I think that's growing rapidly. One thing I would like to know, since there are a lot of business are coming from other countries like Italy or Europe, I think there could be a potential problem in terms of environment, because lots of industrial growth will also welcome pollution, also so many climate changes is also out there. So how Albania is tackling these environmental changes or potential pollutions in terms of to preserve the tourism industry?
We are not there yet. Would like to be in order to have more industrial company to come and to invest in Albania. Considering the environment, we are following all the rules and all the requirements that an EU country has to. So without being in EU, we are applying EU rules and regulations with our industry there in order to keep the environment.
Okay, thank you. I'm Denji from Cameroon. My question is about the diaspora of Albania. Yesterday you told us that about 7 million of Albanians are out of the country. I want to know if you take advantage of that diaspora, and what are the diaspora policies that you put in place to sustain your development. That's my first question. The second one is about the debt. How do you deal with internal debt and external debt? And what are your policies of that you put in place to sustain your debt in the long term, in the long run? Thank you.
Considering the diaspora, in fact, as you may know from the history, Albania, it has been bigger than has its border now. And if you take in consideration old Albanians, the diaspora goes 7 million. As Albanians, we are a little bit strong in character and like to be and identified. You see, Kosovo, they said we are Albanians, although they have been separate from Albania in 1913. We have a strong blood on keeping each other, but we do have policy, and we have done a lot of, call from them to come and to invest to our country, to give them even fiscal facilitation in order to be more attractive for them. But we'll see how it will go. Another thing, comparing for the debt, how we manage and how we finance the debt, we do have a strategy, debt financing strategy, which is taking place in Albania with the Council of Ministers degree, and which shows which it will be for going abroad, for lending abroad, and which amount of money is going to be increased through lending from the commercial banks. So it's 30% of our needs are covered from the internal market, and 70% are getting out.
I think we have time for one more question before we adjourn. Must be.
The guy.
Oh, want to have a follow-up question?
There's another question. I've heard that you have 7 months of import.
Yep.
Now, but during the interview, you said that you are more important than exporter.
Yep.
How can it be possible to have 7 months of import and you have less exportation than importation on the long run?
This is the fact, and it's in fact because of the increase in revenue due to high inflation. And on this period I'm talking for this period, still we don't have a lot of expenditure in our budget. So it's due to the strong lag, I think, and high import revenues.
Any final questions or comments? Well, we have Gail. Oh, yeah, let's take one last question.
Hi, I'm Laurentia from Ghana. So in time past, Ghana moved from the lower middle income country to attain upper middle income country status. I read online that Albania is also at the upper middle income status. How has that affected access to capital from international markets?
This is called the victim of the success. Because when Albania has been upgraded, we were a country that we have to borrow with higher interest rate than we had before. So these are the rules.
All right, well, I think that is probably a good time to wrap up with that final question. So let me conclude the interview by thanking you once again, Gila, for coming here and not only being with us for the interview today, but also your wonderful lecture from yesterday as well. So let's give Gila a very big round of applause and an appreciation for her visit.